we've got the different times of the year, the fall equinox, the spring equinox, the summer solstice, and the winter solstice. And they all have a representation in our lives. Now, typically with the spring, it's a time of renewal. That's where we get the idea of the resurrection of Christ. It's a time of renewal. And then we move into the summer solstice and everything, and that's when things start to grow. That's spring has established itself, every growth is taking place. And when we come to the fall, what happens in the fall? I will pick on you.
Well, I'll share something that just recently been planning, and this is where I'm channeling my dad, or my dad's influencing me, I can tell. Planning a new perennial bed in my front yard. The bed's there already, but I had bushes die, so I had them removed, and planning a new perennial bed involves fall planting for some of the plants. So I've been that's where my creativity's kind of been focused. I had my yard guys start yesterday. So even though I now cannot get down on the ground without being able to get back up, I can't get my hands that kind of dirty in the soil. But I had a part in the planting, and I could handle the plants, and they did the planting, and that just made me feel good.
Yeah, I have a bag of 50 tulip bulbs in my garage that need to go somewhere. I'm not sure where. So yeah, when you and I was thinking about the fact that I mowed the lawn yesterday and today already, and it's only, well, the 3rd, and there's leaves all over the grass again, all over the grass from the trees. And I'm thinking, it's coming. All the leaves are starting to fall already. And, so yes, dying, I guess. Everything is starting to die, or go into sleep. So it's, that's when I think about fall, I think about all of that too. So, but planning, the bulbs are the hope of next year. So, yeah.
I like that. The hope of next year. That's good.
Thank you. Don't know where that came from. It just popped up. Yeah.
Good. Do you have something you wanted to share, Sandy?
Well, I guess I was just thinking of it in the larger picture of it's just the circle of life. The spring is the birth, and the fall is the death. But it's just a circle completed for another year. So kind of the way I see it, in a good, in a good way.
Good. Yes, it is. It's the circle completed. The harvest begins to take place in the fall, and you start putting things away, or as Beth said, you start planning your perennial garden. There's lots of stuff going on, but typically, things are starting to wind down. So in the fall, equinox represents that opportunity to reflect. Now, when we started this off with the winter solstice, and we were letting go of the past and reaching out towards the future, the spring that was coming, it was a time to consider making plans, consider what you want to do. And then with the spring equinox, we focused on stepping into tomorrow, meaning taking your plans and starting to initiate them. And as we come to the fall, this is the opportunity for you to reflect. Did you succeed? Did you follow through on those plans? Now, granted, they were short-term plans, but this may be a turning point for long-term plans. After all, we should have both short-term and long-term plans. My short-term plan has been getting the chapel ready, and and we're in the fall, and I'm seeing all this work I've been doing, that we've been doing. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. That we have been doing, and it's finally coming to a completion. All the major stuff is finally done. You can put it away, in a manner of speaking. Yeah. This is that opportunity to look back at your accomplishments. And if you've fallen short on those accomplishments, well, you still have time. Or maybe this is a good time to consider a second part of whatever it is you laid out for yourself. After all, not everything happens the way we want it. Sometimes we have to develop, I won't say a backup plan, but an alternative plan that goes with the current circumstances. Yeah. And that's where we're at with the fall equinox, is that opportunity to reflect. Did we accomplish what we set out to accomplish? Do we need a second stage to it? You know, it the nice thing about these different seasons that we go through is we can see them in our lives. Now, while in our lives they may not show up at the right time in September and the right time in December, but we go through those different seasons in our life. We have a spring and a summer and a fall and a winter in everything that we do, everything that we move into, we move out of. That's what when we complete something, when it comes to a completion, we move out of that, and then we move into the initiation of something else. That's one way of connecting with these seasonal changes. And the equinoxes, I feel, is a good time for a communion. And the way I interpret communion is communication. When I look back at the communion that's celebrated with about Jesus, and he says this wine is a representation of me, this bread is a representation of me. He's sharing himself with those that have gathered. And that's what communication is about, is sharing. It's what I was sharing with Beth when I asked about her communications with Woofy. It's that sharing. We immerse ourselves. When we become immersed in our communications, we're sharing ourselves with who we're communicating with, and we're taking in what they're sharing. When you come here on Sunday, I'm sharing myself with you, and I'm taking in what you're sharing with me. And in this particular time, we're going to talk a little bit about the communion of dreams. Because dreams offer us opportunities that may not be available for us during the day when our eyes are open. After all, everybody dreams. Anybody who says they don't dream, it's because when they wake up, they woke up during a portion of the dream or the sleep where everything is jumbled. So they don't remember it, they don't retain it. But dreams offer us a lot. And these are some of the beliefs about dreams. Yeah. This is said to come from the Mesopotamians, but the belief was probably much earlier than that because a lot of stuff was happening before people developed writing skills. So the first idea of the soul traveling during a dreaming state came from so long ago that we're not sure, but that was the belief. And this may have come from the shaman, because the early shaman, their jobs were to invoke dreams to guide them, to guide them in healing, to guide them in where to take the tribe, how to do things, because the shaman were the leaders before everything drifted apart into something else. They were the leaders of these clans or families or tribes. And since you're all ladies here, you can take comfort in knowing that the earliest shaman were most likely women. In fact, throughout the history there, what little bit I've come across, a majority of the shaman were women. Of course, I'll share a little more later about the shaman, and you may not like it afterwards. But these are some of the beliefs of the early ancient cultures, and some of them believe that the ancestors came to them or come to them during sleep, and the way they communicated was through possession. They believed that when the ancestors came bringing information to them, they possessed them in the dream. And it was the same with the gods too. There were some beliefs that the gods would, when they came to speak with you, they possessed you. And this was one of the beliefs in ancient Egypt. Yes, ancient Egypt, because the Egyptian god Imhotep was said to appear in dreams of those who slept in his temple. And there are some, and unfortunately, I don't recall where I read this, but I believe it was one of the Greek temples of one of their healing gods. People would go into the temple to sleep when they were ailed, and the Greek god would appear to them in the dream and give them a healing. So there's a lot of stuff going on with dreams. And in one spiritualist book, I read where a person in their dreaming state, they received instructions on how to construct a mill for producing cornmeal. So what are your thoughts about this? Now, let's take a break here and get some thoughts about this. Do you see a pattern in any of this? Think about the dreams you may have had, what you learned in those dreams. Do you recall any like that?
I've had a few profound dreams in my life, and I have written them down. And one was several pages long, but there was just one little spot that I recall offhand. It was I was on a train, and I got off the train, and I met some people or someone, and the person I met said, "This is Lily, your spirit guide." And I can't, I'd have to go find the whole dream to read it to you, but it was quite profound because my grandmother actually had a sister named Lily. Now, I don't know if that was just a coincidence or if it, if it was her. I don't know, but that was nice. And before my grandmother died, we had a lot of talks, and my mother died in June and my grandmother died in November. And after my mother died, I said, "Now, Graham, I know she always told us she would outlive her children, and she did. But after my mother died, I said, "Now, Graham, I know what you said, but please give me a little break before you go, please, because I just need a little time to." So anyway, she lived 6 more months. But before she died, I said, "Now, would you come to me? Could you just come to me?" And she said, yes, she would. And about 6 months after she died, she did, in a dream. And I was in my mother's house, and I walked into her room, and everything was mirror image, the opposite. And she was sitting there crocheting like she always used to do. And I just said, "Graham," I was so elated to see her. And she got up and she hugged me. And it was like I was being electrocuted, but it didn't hurt. But the energy was so palpable. It was unbelievable. And I got the feeling she was going to let go. And I said, "Please don't let go." And she held on for another minute, and then she let go because I'm sure it was very draining. And then all of a sudden her room kind of went away, and I looked in the distance and I saw my mother standing there, and she was wearing one of these beautiful net gowns that they used to wear with all the netting and everything. And she was probably around, I don't know, 25 maybe, yeah, she was young, and she just looked beautiful, but she was off in a distance. So I don't know if those dreams have any relationship to what we're talking about, but they certainly were I felt connected. And in that circle of life with my grandmother and my mother, I sort of did feel like there was a completion there because she told me she would come to me, and she did. She came to me another couple of times after that, but that was the one that was so wonderful because it was like a fulfillment of what she said she would do. And it was just a wonderful experience. Wonderful.
That is exactly what we're talking about.
Oh,
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Communion through dreams.
okay. Hmm.
Anyone else? How about you, Sharon?
Well, it's interesting that you should say that. Sandy knows. I think she knows what I'm going to tell you because I didn't tell you guys this before. But when we were in New York, the day that we went and picked up my brother's ashes from the funeral home, we came back. We went and had lunch, and and of course we had to carry it's so silly. It's funny, but it isn't funny. It's just silly. But so we got back in the car from the funeral home, and my brother-in-law was driving us. So we get back into Manhattan, and we park the car, and we went and had lunch. And we were only a couple blocks away from the apartment. So after lunch, we came back to the car, and we had put the box in the back of the car, and I started to pick it up, and I don't know if it was you said it. And she goes, somebody said, "Is that too heavy?" And of course, my brother was a music, encyclopedia. Okay. So the first thing that pops into my head is, he ain't heavy. He's my brother. This is the first thing. I'm like, And I almost want to laugh because I didn't say it out loud, but I almost want to laugh because I thought he would impress me with that and he'd be cracking up because he would think that was so funny. And so then we carry, I'm carrying the bag, and that alone in it's is I don't know, it's hard to describe the feeling of that. But we walk back to the apartment, we go up on the elevator, we get into the apartment. So then we're like, well, where are we going to put him? So this is leading up to something else. But anyway, so we go in the bedroom and there's the closet, you know, and my brother was gay, you know, so I was like, well, should we put him in the closet? And of course the joke, you know, well, he hasn't been in the closet in a long time, you know, blah, blah, blah. So another funny moment, you know, just silly, but your mind is going like in all these places. So it's just, maybe the silly is the best way to look at it all. But after we did that, that whole afternoon, I don't know if Sandy felt the same way, but I felt so antsy, just really edgy all afternoon. And after we did that, I said, you know what, I have to, this has been a very emotional day and I think I have to lay down. And I said, I just got to lay down for a while. And Sandy goes, you know what, me too. So we both laid down for an hour. And towards the end of the hour, I was given, or I had a glimpse. I had been hoping to hear something or see something, or I mean, there were a couple of instances, like 3 instances where in the night somebody bopped the bed. There were 3 of those, but I didn't see anything and I didn't hear anything, but I just, anyway, I don't know, maybe I wasn't ready. But anyway, that particular afternoon, I was given a glimpse. And the interesting thing about it is that my brother's kitchen, he spent a lot of time in the kitchen. He cooked a lot. And there are 2 windows that looked out onto Broadway. And in front of his building, for many, many years, I think I told you this, has been scaffolding with this like netting over the front of the scaffolding. So you're looking through, you know, metal, and you're looking through this netting down to the street. So what happened in this experience was that I saw myself standing in his kitchen, looking out these windows. But outside of the windows was no scaffolding or netting. There was nothing. But he was sitting outside of the window. He was sitting outside of the kitchen, the left kitchen window, with his back to me. And he was wearing kind of like a mint green tunic. And the interesting thing was there was no ceiling, there was no floor, there were no walls. It was only white around him. And he was staring out. He was looking out. So like I said, his back was to me. And all of a sudden, he turned around this way, and I saw his face, and he had the biggest smile on his face, this huge smile. And he looked to be probably maybe 35 or 40. He was much younger. And it was this, honestly, when I say a glimpse, this was literally a glimpse. It wasn't long, but I knew, well, but the significance of this to me, first of all, he was outside of it. He was disconnected from the apartment. This was the significance to me. He was outside of the apartment. And the other better, even great part of it was that he was looking forward. He was looking at what was to come. You know, I don't know what he exactly was looking at, but whatever it was was in his heart, and he was happy. And that alone spoke volumes to me, because as a man, he was not always very happy. As a gay man and living through these times, he suffered a lot of, you know, just a lot of feelings and emotions about everything that he really did suffer, especially, and even in his later life, he cried a lot. he used to tell me he walked around his apartment and talked to my mother and grandmother all the time. He would just talk to them all day long. So I know there were things. So to see him in this state of happiness and, just the white around him and the whole thing, that was the answer. That was what I was looking for. And that I could have see that he was all okay. And afterwards, when I woke up, I said, Sandy, you're not going to believe this. And I told her, and we both started crying. I'm like, you're not going to believe this. And I didn't tell, I told my family, but I never told his roommate, or I may someday when the time is right, but I just hadn't been able to. But having done this work, and if there's any interpretation at all, I feel like I felt like I got the answers that I wanted. Especially that disconnected from he wasn't gone. He was outside the window. He wasn't in the kitchen, but he was outside of the kitchen, his favorite place to be. And he was looking forward. He wasn't looking back. And the only reason he looked back was to show me that he was okay. So I felt pretty good about that.
I felt a huge sense of relief.
Yeah, me too. And
Huge.
the antsiness that I had felt all day, it was gone. It was gone. So meant a lot. It meant everything, really. It made, as a matter of fact, it made the rest of the trip easier to deal with. It was sort of like seeing some light at the end of the tunnel, not to be, it was sort of like that. Yeah. So anyway.
Beautiful.
Thank you. I'm not
Yep.
sure what the mint green color meant on the tunic, but it was pretty. It was a very pretty color.
What does green typically represent? Do you remember?
Healing.
Okay. Thanks, Beth. I don't know why, but I always think of pink as being a healing color, but I'll try to remember that it's green.
It may be for you. It may be for you.
Because I had a dream about my mother one time after she had passed away about a year afterwards, and I saw her in pink. And that's the only reason why I always thought that the pink meant healing for her. She was wearing a suit like from the 40s, and it was pink, and it was like a two-piece of, skirt and jacket. You don't even see that stuff anymore. So I just remembered having that dream about her. She was going to lunch. Don't ask me what, I don't know why that, but that's what I remember of that dream too. So, but they were both very nice colors. So anyway. Mhm.
Excellent. How about you, Beth?
Oh, I'm struck by before I ever began my journey or questioning my purpose here, my spirituality, which pretty much started coming in my 30s, toward the end of my marriage as well. But I adored my ex-husband's family. I just adored them. His grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, his parents, siblings. So his grandparents on his mother's side, just delightful, down-earth, homespun, genuine people. And his grandfather died, and his grandmother died shortly after that. Now, I was away at a conference for work, so I could not come back for the funeral. And they all told me, don't worry about it. But I had a dream of his grandmother coming to me, and it was a very misty, like early morning light, dappling through the trees, you get that kind of fuzzy outline. It's kind of fuzzy, misty. And that's how she looked. And she just beamed at me. And she said, "You are in store for wonderful things." And that was it. She was gone. That was
Wow.
before this whole journey started. She was right.
Oh,
That one just really stands out. But I have very vivid, very vivid dreams.
mhm.
Like just last night. Well, I had a couple last night. I think one of the times I woke up, you're in that half dream state, and I could have sworn, and I'm in a flight path for the airport. I'm used to hearing planes fly over. Well, last night I heard one fly over very low, and then that rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tat, what the World War II
Yeah.
gunners
Yeah.
did, that strafing. And I'm like, holy shit, what the hell? And then toward morning, the last dream I was having in the morning, for some reason it was focused on bow ties. I was admiring someone's bow tie, and somebody else's bow tie needed to be, adjusted or whatever. And this very dapper little man, a balding man, beaming face, came in with a very dapper tie, and I was admiring it. And he said something so bizarre. "It is as smooth as butter. When you have the right bow tie, it's as smooth as butter." And I woke up, smooth as butter? So I don't know if that was an old-timey
Russian.
joke or reference or something, how we would say, "Oh, that's cool," or I'm going to have to look that up. Smooth as butter.
Yeah, that would be right around Depression era, somewhere in that general vicinity.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Okay.
At least that's what I'm hearing. Not during the Depression era, but afterwards,
Mhm.
when people were starting to pick themselves up. What I'm hearing.
Mhm.
Butter was one of those things that was a commodity,
Yeah, luxury.
a luxury. That's the
Unless you
term I'm
lived on a
looking for.
farm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So excellent, very good. Do you know what common thread all of these have?
Well,
Go ahead.
well, I was going to say, I think one of the things is that it makes us we have through all of these we feel we are connected with spirit. Number one, we're all connected with spirit, loved ones we cared about, loved ones, not necessarily family, but ones we cared about. So yeah, absolutely.
And
That's-
proof of the continuity of life,
Yes, yes.
that
But they're not gone. They're as close to us as a thought, and these memories are so significant to us. To you, Beth, you never forgot it. Sandy, you never forgot it. I'll never forget the one with my brother. And the more I think of it, the more powerful it is. Does that make any sense? When every time I tell this story, I am energized again every single time.
Mhm.
I love telling it. I mean, I'm careful who I tell it to, but I love telling it. I told it to our older sister, who then related to her very fundamentalist daughter, and she just said, "I don't believe in things like that." And I thought, only until it happens to you, my dear, because when you see it, it'll be a divine episode. It'll be some divine intervention that only God or only Jesus could have given you because you believe how you believe. for some reason, it isn't believable with me. So I was a little bit taken aback by that. But, I know what I saw. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I am careful who I mean, I didn't tell my niece, my sister told her daughter, and she said she didn't believe in that. Whatever.
Connected works. I was going to use the term immersed, but connected works. Connected works. And, I use the term immersed because when you're immersed in something, it's all around you. And in the dream, you're immersed in it. You're immersed in the event. You can't just walk out. You're immersed in it.
Mhm.
And that's what they were implying when they talked about being possessed by their ancestors or possessed by the gods. They're so immersed in it, they can't deny it.
Mhm.
And that's the type of communication, whether it's through dreams, conversing as we are now, or through meditation. That's why when we go into the guided meditation, I say, immerse yourselves in that, surround yourself. It's like being in water. You're immersed in it, surrounded by it, and you've got that nurturing around you. Anybody that comes to mind is going to share in that. They're going to get some of that. And as we go into our meditation for this, and it's about 10 minutes, so you'll have plenty of time to immerse yourselves. That's what I would like you to try and focus on, is immersing yourselves in whatever manner that it works for you, is to be completely within it while receiving at the same time.